The curiosity of humanity. The cold, sterile light of the observation deck bathed me in a glow as I stared at the screens, my appendages curling and uncurling in anxious anticipation. The ship hummed with the steady rhythm of life support, a constant reminder of the technological marvels that kept us alive in the void of space. But in that moment, none of it mattered. What mattered was what I was seeing. I blinked all 6 of my eyes, ensuring there was no malfunction in the surveillance feed. No, the images remained the same. The humans were doing it again. I pressed the emergency intercom with a trembling claw. "Administrator Pax, you need to see this immediately." My voice wavered with urgency, my voice sacs throbbing involuntarily. A few seconds later, the heavy metallic doors hissed open, and my superior strode in, their bioluminescent exoskeleton flickering in irritation. The towering Zenari regarded me with a mixture of exasperation and curiosity, their sharp mandibles clicking as they approach. "This better be important, Researcher Tyrell. You interrupted my negotiations with the Veldari delegation." I gestured wildly toward the screen. "Forget diplomacy, Pax. Look at this." On the monitor, a group of human explorers had landed on the dense jungle world of Primaris 9, a planet classified as extremely hazardous due to its dominant predator species, the Varkan. The Varkan were among the most feared creatures in the known galaxy, towering behemoths covered in razor-sharp chitin, their glowing yellow eyes capable of seeing across multiple spectrums. Their massive blade-like forelimbs could slice through even reinforced starship hulls. And yet, the humans were walking toward a Varkan nest. A massive Varkan mother stood guard, her obsidian exoskeleton gleaming under the alien sun. Her claws flexed, her mandibles twitching in warning. Any rational species would have backed away. No, they would have fled. Even the Zenari, known for their unwavering logic, would never willingly approach such a creature. But the humans, they advanced with their hands empty. No weapons, no defensive maneuvers, just walking. I felt my appendages tighten as my respiratory sacs expanded and contracted rapidly. They are going to die, Pax. They're walking straight into their deaths. But Pax was silent, their glowing eyes fixed on the screen. Then, the impossible happened. The moment of trust. The largest of the humans, a male, knelt slowly, his movements deliberate, controlled. He extended a hand, not toward the mother, but toward the small, wriggling creatures nestled within the nest, the Varkan cubs. I almost screamed. Pax stiffened beside me, their mandibles twitching in what I recognized as restrained panic. The Varkan mother growled, her massive head lowering until her jaws were mere inches from the human's exposed flesh. My internal calculations ran wild. Surely, this was it. This was the moment when we would witness why the humans should have perished millennia ago. But the human smiled. He smiled at death itself. And then, the Varkan mother relaxed. Her pupils dilated, her aggressive posture softened, and to my absolute, undeniable horror, she allowed the human to touch one of her cubs. The Science Academy won't believe this. My limbs went slack, and my data tablet clattered to the floor. The sound barely registered. My mind refused to process what I had just seen. Pax exhaled sharply, their glow pulsing in an unreadable rhythm. I turned to them, my voice barely above a whisper. "Tell me I am hallucinating. Administrator, tell me this is an error in the system." But Pax did not answer immediately. Instead, they took a slow step forward, their elongated fingers tapping at the console. The screen zoomed in, focusing on the human's face. His expression was one of pure gentleness. He stroked the small Varkan cub's head with the same tenderness I had seen human parents use with their own offspring. The cub, despite belonging to a species that had terrorized the known galaxy for millennia, purred in response. It purred. The Varkan mother, a creature capable of dismantling an entire Zenari battleship with her claws, let out a slow, deep growl, but there was no hostility in it. It was approval. By the three celestial moons, Pax whispered, their usual composed demeanor shattered. They did it again. The Galactic Council's dismissal. When we presented the footage to the Central Science Academy, they laughed at us. Impossible, the High Chancellor scoffed. Varkan are apex predators. No species, let alone humans, could form bonds with such creatures. It's real, I insisted, my voice rising. We saw it happen. They didn't just survive in the presence of the Varkan mother, they bonded with her offspring. More laughter. Dismissive. Arrogant. Blind. They wouldn't believe us. But Pax, despite their usual neutrality, took a step forward. Their bioluminescent eyes gleamed with something I had never seen before. Conviction. Send a delegation, Pax said, their voice firm. To Primaris 9. If you truly believe this is a fabrication, then prove it with your own eyes. The council exchanged wary glances. Then, after what felt like an eternity, the High Chancellor sighed. Very well. And so, a delegation was formed, but they would not be prepared for what they were about to witness. A universal shift in perspective. I was there when the delegation landed. The humans were already waiting. They stood at the edge of the jungle, smiling as they always did. Unconcerned, as if this was all just a casual diplomatic affair. And then the ground rumbled. The delegation members froze as the shadows of towering figures emerged from the foliage. Varkan, dozens of them. I watched as the delegation recoiled in terror. But then, the Varkan didn't attack. Instead, they bowed. Not out of submission, but out of respect. And behind them, nestled safely in their arms, were their cubs, offered to the humans, a symbol of absolute trust. The galaxy would never be the same after that day. The galactic debate. Why are humans so different? The council chamber of the Galactic Union was filled with an energy that had never been seen before. It wasn't the usual calm, calculated tension that accompanied diplomatic discussions. No, this was raw disbelief, confusion, and perhaps fear. Administrator Pax and I stood at the center of the chamber, a projection of our recorded footage hovering in midair. The delegates, representatives of over 50 starfaring species, watched in silence as the images played over and over. The same scene. A Varkan mother, one of the deadliest apex predators in the known galaxy, allowing a human to hold her cub. It should have been impossible. It should have been a death sentence. And yet, the evidence was undeniable. I turned to High Chancellor Zolaris, leader of the Galactic Union. She stood at the highest platform in the chamber, her crystalline form reflecting the flickering lights of the holographic display. Her voice was slow, deliberate, laced with uncertainty. Explain this. The room erupted into chaos. A room divided. Impossible. This is some kind of human trick, spat Ambassador Chill of the Jarnax Dominion. His species, a reptilian race with a strict hierarchy of dominance, found the entire concept offensive. The Varkan were supposed to be untamable, creatures of raw instinct, guided by nothing but the hunt. And yet, the footage defied everything they thought they knew. The footage is real, Pax said, their bioluminescence pulsing in a rhythm that signaled unwavering certainty. Then we must ask ourselves, said Ambassador Lurik of the Sylvani, their voice soft but firm. Why? The chamber fell silent. Yes. Why? What made the humans so different? What allowed them to walk unarmed into the den of a predator and not be torn apart? What allowed them to be trusted? Theories and disbelief. The council erupted into discussion. Theories were thrown around, dismissed just as quickly. They emit a pheromone, one scientist suggested, a hidden chemical that tricks creatures into trusting them. But the Varkan did not operate on pheromonal bonds. Perhaps they hacked into the Varkan's neural network, another postulated. But the Varkan weren't cybernetic. It went on, hypotheses, debates, denials, until the chrysalids, an ancient species known for their cold logic, spoke. Ambassador Velth's crystalline voice resonated across the chamber. Perhaps the simplest explanation is the correct one. All eyes turned to them. Humans are unique, not because of their strength, or their intelligence, or their technology, but because of their capacity to trust first. A silence heavier than any starship engine filled the room. That was it. That was the answer, wasn't it? Humans trusted first. The nature of trust. I felt a shiver ripple through my appendages as I realized what this meant. Every species in the galaxy had evolved under a simple truth: survival above all else. To survive, they had developed caution, fear, instincts that prioritized self-preservation. But humans, they evolved differently. They saw the universe not as a threat to overcome, but as a place to explore. They did not start with fear. They started with trust. And trust was contagious, even to creatures that should have been beyond it, even to predators, even to beings that had spent millennia tearing apart anything that came near them. Because if a human was willing to trust them first, why shouldn't they trust back? A test like no other. The debate raged on. Some accepted the answer. Others refused. The Jarnax, the Veldari, the Thrawn, they would not believe it. Not without proof. And so the proposal was made. A test. A controlled experiment. A challenge to humanity. The challenge. Prove it to the galaxy. The Council declared that the humans would be placed in a high-risk environment. A world filled with the most dangerous creatures the Union had ever encountered. Creatures known for their unbreakable aggression. Creatures that attacked on sight. If humanity could tame even them, then the Council would have no choice but to accept the truth. The humans, they accepted the challenge without hesitation. And I knew then, this was going to change everything. The arrival on Tarvaxis 3. Tarvaxis 3. A death world by every classification standard. The atmosphere was thick with sulfuric storms, the ground littered with the skeletal remains of species that had wandered too far. And in the shadows, the Exenarok waited. The Exenarok were beyond predators. They were apex dominators, bioengineered monsters from an extinct civilization, creatures that had outlived their creators and ruled their world with merciless precision. They had never known trust, only the kill. The delegation of humans landed without weapons. No armor, no defenses, just themselves. And we watched in horror as the Exenarok emerged. Dozens of them. Their massive exoskeletons gleamed under the twin suns, their claws dripped with acid. They saw the humans, and they charged. I closed my eyes. This was it. This was the end. But then, the first human dropped to one knee and extended their hand. No weapons, just trust. The impossible happens again. The Exenarok hesitated. For the first time in recorded history, they hesitated. The lead Exenarok, the largest, most terrifying of them, lowered its head, snarling. Its acidic saliva dripped onto the ground, sizzling against the scorched earth. But it did not strike. The human reached forward, and then, against all logic, against all history, against every instinct that should have dictated otherwise, the Exenarok Alpha did not attack. It let the human touch it. A shudder ran through the gathered alien delegates. We had seen it with the Varkan. Now, we were seeing it again. A universal shift in perspective. The implications were staggering. The humans had done the impossible not once, but twice. It was no fluke, no accident. It was who they were. They changed the rules of survival. They didn't conquer through force. They didn't dominate through fear. They won through trust. The entire galaxy was watching. And in that moment, everything changed. The experiment, humanity's power of connection. A galaxy holds its breath. For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Exenarok had hesitated. Not because of superior firepower, not because of biological conditioning, not even because of technological advancements, They hesitated because a human held out their hand. I stood in the observation station on Tarvaxis 3, my appendages trembling as I watched the events unfold. The council, scientists, warriors, and diplomats from across the Union sat in silence, their wide eyes fixed on the live feed streaming from the ground below. The lead, Xenarach Alpha, a beast that had never known mercy, had lowered its head in acknowledgement of the human standing before it. It did not attack. It did not retreat. It simply acknowledged. And that single moment would change the course of the galaxy forever. The moment of decision. The air on Tarvaxis 3 was thick with tension. The human knelt, completely vulnerable, looking up at the Xenarach Alpha without fear. His heartbeat, measured by the monitoring systems, remained steady. The alien beast took a slow step forward. Its armored legs left deep craters in the scorched earth, each movement radiating an unfathomable strength. The council members watching from the safety of orbit were in shock. "This is a trick," growled Ambassador Chill of the Jarnax Dominion, his reptilian form coiled with frustration. "The Xenarach do not recognize peace. They are killing machines." "And yet," I said, unable to mask the awe in my voice, "they are not killing." The human, Dr. Elias Rourke, a xenobiologist and cultural researcher, extended his palm even further. An open invitation. The Xenarach Alpha let out a deep, rumbling snarl, a sound that made even the armored security forces stationed around the experiment flinch. Its acid-dripping mandibles twitched. The human did not move. For one long, agonizing moment, the entire galaxy seemed to hold its breath. Then, the Xenarach Alpha lowered its head, and it let Elias Rourke touch it. A new understanding. A collective gasp rippled through the Galactic Council chamber. Even the most skeptical of species, those who had laughed at the idea of human influence, fell into stunned silence. A death-world predator, a creature that had never known compassion, had willingly allowed a human to touch it. Dr. Rourke's hand rested on the Xenarach's exoskeleton. His fingers, fragile and organic compared to the beast's armored hide, moved gently, tracing the ridges of its carapace. And then, the Xenarach rumbled. Not a growl, not a threat, but a sound of acknowledgement, a sound of trust. A bond had been formed. The galaxy reacts. Back in the council chambers, a furious debate erupted. "This changes everything," declared Ambassador Luric of the Sylvani, her delicate features illuminated by the holographic footage. "The Xenarach have resisted all forms of domestication, all attempts at communication. Until now," Pax added, their bioluminescence flickering in rapid patterns of excitement. "We must reconsider our approach to interspecies diplomacy," murmured the High Chancellor. But not everyone was convinced. "This is dangerous," roared the Jarnax delegate. "If humans have the ability to influence creatures at this level, then they are a threat to the balance of power." Other voices joined in, some arguing that humanity should be closely studied, others proposing that they be limited in their expansion to prevent unforeseen consequences. It was chaos. Yet, despite the fear and confusion, one undeniable truth remained. Humans had done something no species had ever accomplished, and the implications were staggering. The science behind the phenomenon. The days following the experiment were filled with relentless study. How had humanity achieved this? Teams of scientists, sociologists, and psychologists from across the Union analyzed every aspect of human behavior in an attempt to decipher the mystery. Theories were proposed. Did humans emit a subconscious signal that encouraged trust? Was it a genetic trait, a biological anomaly unique to their evolution? Or was it something deeper, something beyond simple science? The research was exhaustive, and yet no conclusive biological answer was found. What the scientists did discover, however, was even more profound. The key wasn't in genetics or pheromones. It was in their mindset. Humans, unlike any other known species, did not begin their interactions with fear. They trusted first. even in the face of danger, even when all logic suggested otherwise. And that trust, once given, was contagious. Even the most violent creatures, the most hardened killers, responded to it. Because, for the first time in their existence, they were not treated as monsters. They were treated as equals. The Council's verdict. The weight of the revelation was too great to ignore. The Council convened in an emergency session. Every species in the Union sent representatives. The fate of humanity's place in the galaxy was at stake. The debates were endless. Some feared that this ability made humans too dangerous, that if they could influence even the most aggressive beings, they could become an unstoppable power. Others argued that humans were the galaxy's greatest asset, that their ability to connect, to unite, to bond was something that could elevate the entire Union to a new era of peace and cooperation. Finally, after long and heated discussions, the High Chancellor stood and delivered the verdict. Humanity would no longer be viewed as an unpredictable anomaly. They would be recognized as a pivotal species within the Union, not because of their military strength, not because of their technological advancements, but because of their gift of connection. A universe forever changed. The decision sent ripples across the stars. The role of humans in galactic society shifted overnight. They were no longer seen as reckless explorers, but as essential bridges between worlds. Diplomats sought out humans for peace talks. Scientists partnered with humans for research into interspecies relationships. Even predatory species began approaching humanity with a strange, newfound respect. And on Tarvaxis 3, the Xenarak began to change. For the first time in recorded history, they no longer attacked outsiders on sight. They watched. They listened. And with cautious steps, they began to approach humans voluntarily. The legacy of compassion. Humanity's rise as the peacemakers of the galaxy. A new era begins. The decision had been made. Humanity was no longer an anomaly, no longer just another species among the stars. The Galactic Council, after much deliberation, had come to a resolution, one that would change the course of history. Humanity would be recognized, not as conquerors, nor as mere explorers, but as something far more valuable. The peacemakers of the galaxy. This was unprecedented. Never before had the Union designated an entire species with such a role. In the past, peace had always been a negotiation of power, a delicate balance of threats and diplomacy. But humans, they did not enforce peace with warships. They did not demand respect with superior firepower. Instead, they earned it through something the galaxy had never seen before: compassion. And the galaxy was watching. The first Galactic Peace Initiative. With their new designation, humanity was tasked with an impossible mission. Could they bring peace to conflicts that had existed for centuries? Could they unite species that had been at war for generations? The Council, skeptical but hopeful, assigned the first Galactic Peace Initiative, a series of diplomatic missions led by humans, aimed at resolving disputes that no other species had been able to mediate. And the first test would be one of the deadliest conflicts in galactic history: the blood feud of Carrick and Veltha. The Kareki and the Velthan had been at war for over 600 years. Their feud was one of the most violent and long-standing in known history. Entire planets had been ravaged, civilizations lost in the relentless cycle of revenge, hatred, and destruction. The war had escalated to a point where even the Galactic Union had given up on intervention. Nothing had worked. Not military intervention. Not economic sanctions. Not even the threat of extinction. For the Kareki and the Velthan, war was a way of life. And then, the humans arrived. A different approach. Unlike the ambassadors that had come before them, the humans did not enter the war zones with military fleets. They did not demand peace through ultimatums or threats. Instead, they did something no one had tried before. They listened. For the first time in 600 years, someone listened. The humans sat with both sides, not as mediators, not as diplomats wielding the authority of the Union, but as individuals. They talked to the wounded soldiers. They spoke with the grieving families. They shared meals with the survivors of war-torn cities. And in those conversations, something began to shift. The Kareki and the Velthen had always viewed their war as a matter of pride and honor. They fought because it was all they had ever known. But the humans, they showed them something else. The story that changed everything. One night, in the ruins of a burned-out city on Veltha Prime, a human ambassador sat beside an old Kareki warrior. This warrior had fought for 3 centuries, had lost countless comrades, had seen entire generations born and die on the battlefield. And as the human handed him a simple bowl of warm food, they spoke. "Do you know the first recorded war on Earth?" the human asked. The Kareki grunted. "No. It lasted 30 years. We thought it was endless, but after it was over, we realized something. No one truly won. The people who fought, the people who ordered the war, they were all gone. What was left? The children, the next generation. And do you know what they wanted?" The warrior frowned. "What?" "They wanted to live." A heavy silence fell between them. The human looked at the aged warrior, their voice quiet but firm. "How many generations have been born and died in your war?" The Kareki did not answer. He could not answer, because in that moment he realized the truth. The war was not about honor. It was not about revenge. It was not even about victory anymore. It was about survival. And survival meant ending the war. The ripple effect. Word of the conversation spread. First among the warriors, then among the civilians, then among the leaders. For the first time in centuries, the Kareki and the Velthen began to question why they were still fighting. It did not happen overnight. The scars of war were too deep, the wounds too fresh. But the humans did not force peace upon them. They guided them toward it. They spoke to the warriors about what lay beyond war. They helped the civilians rebuild. They brought the children together, Velthen and Kareki alike, and showed them a future without bloodshed. And slowly, the war began to fade. Until, one day, it ended. Not with an armistice, not with a treaty forced by the council, but with a decision. A choice. The Kareki and Velthen chose peace, and for the first time in 600 years, their worlds knew silence. The human effect. When the news reached the Galactic Council, the impact was immeasurable. Humanity had done what no other species had accomplished. They had ended the longest war in Union history, not through power, not through force, but through understanding. The reports flooded in. The Velthen High Chancellor gave a speech, stating, "The humans showed us that peace is not given. It is chosen." The Kareki warlord declared, "They did not shame us into surrender. They reminded us why we fight, and that made us realize we no longer had to." The galaxy had changed, and humanity was at the center of it. The Council's declaration. In a historic gathering, the Galactic Council formally acknowledged humanity's role in interstellar peacekeeping. From that day forward, they were no longer just another species. They were the peacemakers. Diplomatic missions surged. Conflicts that had raged for decades began to wane under human mediation. The once feared species became symbols of hope. And Pax, standing beside me in the council chambers, whispered the words that sent a shiver down my spine. "This is only the beginning." The resistance against peace, those who fear humanity's power, the unseen threat. Peace was spreading across the galaxy. The Kareki and Velthen war had ended, marking a turning point in interstellar history. New alliances formed, old conflicts began to wane, and at the center of it all stood humanity. But not everyone welcomed this change. For some, peace was not an opportunity. It was a threat. The balance of power in the galaxy had always been dictated by war, by strength. For centuries, the most dominant empires had ruled through fear, military might, and strategic destruction. But now Now, an unpredictable force had entered the equation. A force that did not conquer with weapons. A force that did not subjugate with fleets. A force that ended wars with mere words. And that, to some, was the greatest threat of all. The silent opposition. They called themselves the Dominion of Order. They were not a single species, nor a single empire. They were an alliance of those who thrived in chaos. Warlords, arms dealers, governments that maintained their rule through perpetual conflict. To them, humanity was dangerous, not because of their technology, not because of their military, but because of their influence. Because humans were rewriting the rules of galactic politics. They were undoing centuries of strategic conflict, dissolving old rivalries, rendering entire war economies obsolete, and the Dominion of Order would not allow it. The assassination attempt. The first strike came in the form of a message. A human ambassador, tasked with mediating a dispute on the neutral planet of Draxus 4, was found dead in their diplomatic quarters. No forced entry. No alarms triggered. A single poison blade left embedded in their chest. The killer. Unknown. But the message was clear. Humanity's influence would not go unchallenged. The Galactic Council convened in an emergency session, tension thick in the air. This was not an isolated attack. Pax murmured beside me, their bioluminescence dimming with concern. This was a declaration of war. And war was coming. Not with armies, not with invasions, but with deception, sabotage, and subterfuge. The Dominion of Order did not seek open battle. They sought to dismantle humanity from within, to break their alliances, to spread doubt, to undo everything they had built. And their plan had already begun. The seeds of division. The Dominion wasted no time. They exploited fear. They amplified distrust. Across the galaxy, whispers spread. Humans are manipulators. They are changing the natural order. If they can control the fiercest creatures, who says they won't control us next? Doubt took root. Species that had once embraced human diplomacy began to hesitate. Even the Galactic Council itself grew divided. Some questioned whether humanity's influence was too great. Was it possible that they had changed the galaxy too fast? Had they rewritten history too easily? Was peace too unnatural? The Dominion of Order knew exactly what they were doing, and for the first time, humanity was on the defensive. The attack on Terra. Then came the boldest move yet. A coordinated assault, not on an outpost, not on a colony, on Earth itself. It began with a cyber attack, disabling planetary defense grids across key sectors. Then, before any response could be mobilized, ships appeared. They were not warships. They were terror ships, fast, stealthy, designed for infiltration, sabotage, and assassination. Their goal was not conquest. It was chaos. Explosions rocked key diplomatic centers. Key human figures were targeted. Earth's security forces, caught off guard, scrambled to respond. The message was clear. You are not invincible. You will not rewrite the galaxy unchallenged. The response, humanity unleashed. But the Dominion had miscalculated. They thought humanity's strength lay only in their words. They had forgotten one crucial thing. Humans do not break under pressure. They adapt. They endure. And when pushed, they fight back. The hunt for the Dominion. The Galactic Union, shocked by the brazen attack, finally recognized the true enemy. It was not humanity. It was those who profited from war, from suffering, from division. And now, the galaxy turned against them. The Dominion of Order had operated in the shadows for centuries. But now, humanity led the charge to expose them. A coalition was formed, not of warriors, not of conquerors, but of leaders, diplomats, scientists, and spies. The greatest minds from across the galaxy came together to dismantle the Dominion piece by piece, exposing their networks, destroying their supply chains, turning their own allies against them. And the Dominion began to crumble. The final stand. With their influence collapsing, the Dominion made one last desperate move. A final stand. They gathered their fleets. Their last stronghold. The war world of Dagonia 6, a planet covered in ancient battlegrounds, littered with wreckage from thousands of past conflicts. The last warlords, the last remnants of an era built on conquest, prepared for their final battle. And humanity. They did not come alone. The Galactic Union. A coalition stronger than ever before. Gathered its forces. The fleets of former enemies stood side by side. Karaki warships, Velth and dreadnoughts. Even the once hostile Varkan and Senaruk joined the battle. Because this was no longer just a fight for humanity. This was a fight for the future of the galaxy. A final war to decide whether the stars belonged to chaos or to something greater. The last war. Humanity's battle for the future of the stars. The war to end all wars. The Dominion of Order had made their stand. Their last stronghold. Dagonia 6, the war world, was a graveyard of ancient conflicts, a planet littered with the rusting bones of ships and the shattered remains of warriors who had died in wars long forgotten. And now, it was to be the site of the final battle. The battle that would decide the fate of the galaxy. The Galactic Union had assembled its greatest coalition, an armada that stretched across the void. Humanity led the charge. They had fought their wars before. They had bled, they had struggled, they had endured. But this war, this was not just their fight. This was a fight for the future of all species, a war to determine whether the stars belonged to those who profited from suffering, or to those who sought a better way. The fleets moved into position. The silence before the first shot was deafening. And then, the last war began. The battle for the stars. Dagonia 6 orbit was a maelstrom of destruction. The Dominion's fleets were built for brutality, massive jagged warships designed for sheer devastation. The Galactic Union's armada, led by human strategists, was built for unity. Where the Dominion's forces fought as scattered warlords, still clinging to their own selfish ambitions, the Union fought as one. Tactics evolved in real time. Information flowed seamlessly. Species that had once been mortal enemies now flew side by side. Human commanders issued orders with precision, their adaptability proving to be the key to the battle. But the Dominion had one final weapon, the Harbinger Protocol, a last-ditch contingency plan, known only to the highest Dominion leaders. It was not a weapon of war. It was something far worse. A weapon designed to erase civilizations, the Harbinger Protocol. At the heart of Dagonia 6 lay the Harbinger Core, an ancient relic of a long-dead empire. It was a planetary-scale EMP cannon, capable of firing a pulse strong enough to disable all technology in an entire sector. No shields, no ships, no escape. The Dominion had only one goal now, to wipe out the battlefield completely, to destroy themselves and take the Union down with them, to reset the balance of the galaxy back to chaos. The countdown began. 15 minutes until the pulse fired. The Galactic Union had no time to waste. Humanity's gamble. Human forces moved in, their ships cutting through the Dominion's final defenses with relentless efficiency. But there was no time to breach the core. No time to disable the Harbinger Protocol from the outside. The only way to stop it was from within. And so, the decision was made. A strike team was assembled, the best of the best. Soldiers, engineers, hackers, a team drawn from every species of the Union. But at its heart, leading the mission, was a single human, Commander Elias Rourke. The final infiltration. The team breached the surface of Dagonia 6, landing amidst the wreckage of centuries-old battles. The Dominion forces fought fiercely, desperate to hold the line until the countdown reached 0. Rourke and his team pushed forward, every second bringing them closer to the Harbinger Core. The plan was simple: override the core's controls, shut down the weapon, save the entire sector from annihilation. But as they reached the central chamber, they found the last of the Dominion warlords waiting. The final duel. Standing before the control console was Grand Warlord Calroth, last leader of the Dominion. His armor was old, dented from decades of battle. His eyes burned with rage, with hatred, with the desperate refusal to accept the future. "You think you can change the galaxy with peace?" He spat, his voice like grinding metal. Rourke did not hesitate. "We already have." And then the duel began. Calroth fought like a demon, his blade a blur of death. But Rourke was human. He was not faster. He was not stronger. But he was smarter. And when the moment came, he did not strike to kill. He disarmed. Calroth fell to his knees, stunned. "Why?" The warlord gasped. "Why spare me?" Rourke's voice was steady. "Because this war dies today, and you will live to see the future we build." And with those words, Rourke deactivated the Harbinger core. The end of the Dominion. The moment the core shut down, the battle above shifted. The Dominion forces, seeing their final weapon fail, began to break. Some fled. Some surrendered. Some fought to the last. But they had lost. Humanity had won, not just with firepower, but with strategy, unity, and the courage to believe in something greater. The war was over, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The aftermath. A new era begins. In the aftermath of the war, the Galactic Union made a declaration that would shape the future of interstellar civilization. No more warlords. No more factions profiting from destruction. A new peace was forged, with humanity at the center of it. They were no longer just the peacemakers. They were the guardians of the galactic future. They did not rule. They did not conquer. They united. And that unity would echo across the stars for generations to come. The unknown threat, humanity's greatest test yet. The war was over, but peace never lasts. The dominion of order had fallen. The war that should have ended with a galactic apocalypse had instead become humanity's greatest victory. They had rewritten the rules of war. They had forged unity out of chaos. They had won not just with weapons, but with trust. The galaxy was at peace. For the first time in thousands of years, there were no great wars, no mass planetary invasions, no civilizations on the brink of extinction. The Galactic Union stood united, stronger than ever before. But humanity knew one thing that no other species had considered. Peace is fragile. And in the shadows of the void, something ancient stirred. Something that had been waiting, watching. And now that war had ended, it was ready to reveal itself. The signal from beyond the edge. It began with a single transmission. A faint signal detected from the farthest reaches of the galaxy, beyond the edge. The edge was the boundary of the known universe, a place where even the bravest explorers dared not go. A region filled with dead worlds, abandoned ruins, and anomalies that defied physics itself. For centuries, the Union had ignored it. There was nothing there. Until now. The signal was not random static. It was a message, a warning. And it was not sent by any known species. Humanity was the first to answer. Because humans did not fear the unknown. They ran toward it. And that decision would change the course of history once again. The expedition into the void. The Galactic Union authorized an expedition to investigate the signal. A single fleet, led by human pioneers, scientists, and warriors, set course for the edge. It would be the most dangerous mission ever attempted. Because whatever was out there, it had been waiting for them. As they ventured deeper into the unknown, they found signs of something terrible. Worlds stripped clean of life. Planets reduced to dust. Their atmospheres ripped away. Ruins of civilizations that had never been recorded in Union history. Something had been here before them, and it had left nothing behind. Except the message. A warning, written in hundreds of alien languages. And in the center of it all, one phrase. Written in perfect, flawless human English. You were not the first. And then, the signal changed. Because now, whatever had sent it, knew they were coming. The encounter with the unknown. Deep in the void, beyond the edge, they found something impossible. A structure floating in the blackness. It was not a station. It was not a ship. It was a graveyard. An entire derelict megastructure, the size of a planet, made from technology no species had ever seen before. And inside, they found records. A history of something older than the Union. Older than the Dominion. Older than anything. A force that had existed long before the first great empires rose. A force that had wiped entire civilizations from existence. And as they read the final entry in the records, the human commander felt a chill unlike anything they had ever known. Because it said, "They always think they are the first. They always think they are the strongest. They always think they are alone. And then we come." At that moment, their ship's sensors screamed with alarms, because something was waking up, and it was watching them. The return to the Union, and the warning that came too late. The expedition fled the structure, returning to Union space with their findings. But the damage had already been done. The moment they had discovered the signal, they had been found. Because whatever had wiped out those ancient civilizations was still out there. And now, it knew that the galaxy had survivors. For the first time in human history, they were not the ones seeking out the unknown. The unknown was coming for them. The Galactic Council gathered in emergency session. The question was no longer about diplomacy, no longer about war. It was about survival. Because the enemy they now faced was not like the Dominion. It did not seek power. It did not seek control. It did not even seek destruction. It simply erased. And now it was coming for the Union. The final decision: fight or flee. For the first time, the Galactic Union faced a true existential threat. One that could not be reasoned with. One that could not be negotiated with. An enemy that had erased countless civilizations before them. Some species wanted to flee, abandon the galaxy to its fate. Some wanted to hide, hoping to be overlooked. But humanity had a different answer. They had spent centuries bringing the galaxy together. They had ended wars, built alliances, created bonds that had never existed before. They had been the peacemakers, but now they would be the defenders. The Union would not run. They would not surrender. They would not wait for their fate to come for them. They would stand together. And for the first time in history, the entire galaxy prepared for war. Not against each other, but against the unknown. Against something that had never lost before. Against something that had never been stopped. But it had never faced humanity. And humanity did not go quietly. The future of the stars. As fleets prepared, as species armed themselves, as the greatest minds in the galaxy worked to understand what they were about to face, one thing became clear. This was the beginning of a new era. A war not for control, not for power, but for the right to exist. And at the heart of it all, humanity stood once again at the front. Because they were not just another species anymore. They were the last hope of the galaxy. And whatever was coming, it would learn the same lesson that every empire, every predator, and every warlord before it had learned. You can fear humanity. You can fight humanity. But you can never break humanity. The end.